Hi, and welcome to the Pride Road Architects podcast. I'm Lisa Rains, and each episode I'll talk to people who interest me in the world of architecture and business. So join me and fellow lions and lionesses as we explore architecture in the den. Good morning. So welcome to Architecture in the Den with me, Lisa Rains, and today I'm delighted to welcome Daniel Leon. So Dan, would you like to just introduce yourself?
Morning. Yeah, Daniel Leon, Square Feet Architects, founder, set it up. It's actually 20 years ago, very shortly. So we're a sort of small practice based near Marylebone Station, if you know where I mean, and do a variety of projects from one-off houses to multiple mixed-use residential-led developments, some education, nursery schools, primary schools, some tertiary education, and some community projects, place of worship, works for charities, and other things.
Amazing. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Nice to be here.
So just going back to when you set up, so you've been going for nearly 20 years.
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I think
Quite impressive.
as lots of people do, there's a vague start, because there's a period of moonlighting that happens. So it was in about 2003. So just sort of set up the business, and then I think probably incorporated in 2004. So it's I think often date things when you pay your PI. So I think it was probably in July we started in 2003. This first paid my.
So is that a we or is it an I? Was it just you, or
it was? So it was just me. So just my potted CV very quickly was. I mean, we're both from Manchester, and I went to college in Liverpool, and a bit of time in Seattle, and then came back and did my part 3 in Manchester. Worked for a small practice there. Then
who did you work for in Manchester?
They were called Hattrells, a little practice.
Yes, was it Ian Hattrell?
No. I think Hattrell, Old Man Hattrell, was long gone when I was there, and it was run by 2 guys who I think were the successors of. It might have been even older than them. I mean, it might have been. I think they were a Coventry company. Anyway, whatever. So worked there, and then went to Australia. Worked on some Olympic projects in the late 1990s. So for the 2000 Olympics, that was fun. And then came back and worked for a period of time at Levitt Bernstein in London, doing some of their sort of housing and arts projects, which was good. And then went to Bushow Henley, which is now Henley Hale Brown. Gavin Simon were sort of a year above me at college, and sort of knew them. Was there an associate with them, worked them for about 4 years, and then had the opportunities. The way things do, friends and friends of friends get in touch and want a bit of work doing, and the sort of bit of moonlighting began, and then sort of in 2004 sort of jumped and set up. And yes, it was just me, and I think it's this probably classic thing of I'm not just calling it Daniel Leon Architects because wanting to appear a bit bigger, and when you pick up the phone, it's Daniel Leon from Daniel Leon Architects. And also had the sort of the intention of making space for other people to have, if you like, say, authorship and ownership and all that kind of thing. So setting up, doing some small stuff, and then grew, and then it was plastic on the kitchen table. Needed to hire a first person. That was a part 1. That part at that time, I realized, and once I hired the part 1, realized that they were doing all the sort of the drawing and the designing, and I was doing all the rubbish, all the shit, really, and the admin. Anyway, that part one person went back to college to finish up their studies, and I sort of decided that my next hire wasn't going to be an architect. So my next hire was actually a sort of administrator, office manager kind of person. And it was Angela, who I still work with, sort of cut to about 16, 17 years later. I mean, we knew each other as teenagers. She'd worked for sort of contractors beforehand, so she knew one end of a brick from another. And so yeah, that was a good springboard for me being able to do more design work, more front end stuff, with her taking on a lot of the rubbish, and then sort of kind of cut. And then the business grew, but sort of cut to, so let's say 18 years later, she's still working. You know, we're still working together, and we've set up a separate company now, sort of last year, called Square Feet Home, which is, you know, and she wanted to sort of develop herself in her own career, and the opportunity sort of arose to set up almost like a small works department. So, which is a bespoke sort of project management hand-holding service for clients, typically doing, you know, domestic extension kind of work and refurbishment work. And she's not an architect, she's not a drawer, but she knows, you know, the process. And so she's sort of lots of hand-holding, taking clients to, you know, choose tiles and kitchens and whatever else. And for clients who maybe are, you know, a bit time poor, that's working really well.
Design type service.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it sort of interior design stroke QS contract management type?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, for the project, she might buy, because Square Feet Home is a separate company. Square Feet Architects 100% owned by me, and then Square Feet Home is 50-50 me and her. And we she might buy architectural services from Square Feet Architects or from other freelancers.
And so is she still involved in Square Feet?
Yeah. She still works at Square Feet Architects. She sort of does the admin here, so splits the time between those two, and it's working well. So that leaves sort of, so Square Feet Architects kind of, back to where we were telling the story, sort of grew, and doing a variety of, as I was saying, education, community, and sort of residential projects to kind of where we were now. And about sort of 3 or 4 years ago, we were about 10 people, and you know, a relatively standard hierarchical structure of you know, a sort of, let's say a director, and then associates, and then part 3s and 2s and whatever. So that kind of worked well. And then Brexit happened, and COVID happened, and you know, and then the position we're kind of in now, and through natural wastage, people go back to college, through X, Y, and Z, we started to, we kind of shrunk down a bit, you know. So we're kind of with kind of 3 or 4 now, and it's kind of led me into a little bit of sort of reevaluation about the way practices are set up. And you know, I think lots of practices, big practices we can think of, you know, there's the classic is that some mates meet at university, and or in an office somewhere, and maybe win a competition, or you know, or get a job and set up, and then they, you know, deliver that project and are looking for the next one, and it's they hire a couple of juniors, and ultimately, and then they're looking for the next job to feed that machine, and it's that sort of classic arrangement of with architects turning into businessmen, business people, being managers, not necessarily, you know, experienced in that. And some people are, some architects become good in business, and others less so. And you know, through our skills of, you know, the boot camp they put us through at college with communication, standing there and getting grilled in a crit is, you know, is puts us in good stead, and maybe we're problem solvers. So some people become good at that sort of thing. But it kind of led me to do a little bit of research, which I'm sort of just starting on at the moment, on looking at other industries and professions about how they operate. So talking to people I know and friends and people I've been introduced to, the way doctors work, the way GPs work, the way barristers, classically a barrister is in a chambers, they're kind of self-employed, they find their own work, and then they give a proportion of their salaries to the chambers, which covers their administrative costs or whatever else. But ultimately, they're kind of self-employed. In a similar kind of way, some GPs, there are sort of partner GPs and there are salaried GPs work in similar kind of ways. And I've got a sort of I was chatting to a guy who runs a law firm. They have almost like an umbrella organization, similar in a way that he runs. He offers senior lawyers an umbrella organization that covers their marketing, their PI, their compliance. Because in law, it's really, particularly if you're dealing with client money, it's very expensive and quite tricky to do that, to set up as a one-man band the way architects might. That sort of cost of entry for lawyers is much higher and more difficult. So that was kind of interesting. I was chatting to a car designer. I thought that was a sort of similar, because the things that we design, buildings, are quite sort of complicated things. They take a long time to make. They've got to last a long time. They've got a gazillion moving parts that have got to work. And, if they don't work, they leak or fall down, we're in trouble. And they've got to fit into their environment. If you're making a TV ad, or writing a piece in a magazine, its longevity isn't significant, and the liability is kind of small. Obviously, barristers and doctors and have got to worry about their negligence as well. A car designer I thought was going to be an interesting thing, and what I sort of extracted from the conversation with a car designer was about how their model for freelance and full-time staff model kind of work, because Brexit kind of changed that for them. It's a very specialist kind of field in car design. And the actual pool, the guy was saying he previously worked on a fair much more of a freelance, looser basis. But since Brexit, the actual pool of talented staff or skilled staff that he could call upon was much reduced. So he had to move to a much more of a full-time, full contract kind of arrangement in order to keep the skilled staff. And so that, that was a sort of an interesting sort of concept about how that's affecting architecture, about do we, work on a much more of a sort of a freelance basis, a looser, collaborative, project by project basis, or do we have to have this, if you like, this machine? I mean, a friend who runs a big practice, architecture practice, and sometimes he says it's like running an employment agency. You just got to win the work in order to keep people busy, and so that's inevitably the quality takes a hit, because it's just all about delivering those tender packages or whatever in a certain time in order to get your fee and do the next one. And so you're not so discerning, I think, about the work that you do. I was chatting to a guy who makes big, sort of TV film for Amazon and for BBC and other things. And it was a sort of interesting insight in terms of that, the core team of a TV production or a film production company is actually often quite small. They're looking for the next project. They're, reading scripts, reading books, getting options on things, which is a little bit like a feasibility study, I think. And then it goes to the next stage where they might commission a script. Maybe that's planning permission, I don't know. And then go to the next stage of actually doing a pilot or something. Is that building a prototype or doing some detailed design? Only when it gets fully commissioned and on site do they say they crew up. That's their turn of phrase. And all of a sudden, then that sort of relatively small team turns into maybe a couple of hundred people. And maybe that's like being on site, and you've got your, the actors are maybe our contractors, and there's long been a discussion in the work that we do. Is an architect more a producer or a director? And the director is obviously much more of a creative type, and the producer is much more. And I think maybe since the advent of project managers, maybe project managers are more producers and architects are a bit more the director, and we've lost that production role.
Yeah, I think it changes depending on who your clients are.
Mm.
So I think it's probably a case of working out. So sounds like you're kind of thinking about the future and how you want the practice to look like. I probably work backwards and go, where do you want to be and what sort of clients do you want to work with? And then work through, right, what's the appropriate practice structure for that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think
with the end in mind and work backwards. So
yeah, but I think because looking at some of those other industries, they deliver big projects but have a relatively small core team. And I think it's a a team that delivers a project rather than there being 200 people that are looking for the next film. Because people in TV and film, that's the other thing. A lot of those people work on freelance basis, only expect to work 6 to 9 months of the year. And that's not the model in architecture so much. I mean, it is maybe in some parts of architecture. And I was thinking, because we did things in a certain way, let's say 20 years ago, doesn't necessarily mean we should do that going forward. So whether tech is going to influence it, whether the generation of people who are much more happy with a sort of a portfolio lifestyle, rather than my dad was from a generation had a job for life, and the generation sort of let's say the 20-year-old architects coming through now got a very different attitude to careers, I think, than say my dad did, and we're somewhere in between. And I think we just need to just stop and think occasionally about and whether AI is going to impact things, whether remote working is going to affect things, whether the impact of working from home, opportunities. I think that one of the chatting to another architect who had a big practice and it sort of shrunk down a bit, it is, and one of my takeaways is just keeping on top of your overheads, actually. And if you win a big project as a small practice and you're expanding and you're growing, still keep an eye on, okay, well, what if I do have to retreat back to being, the small practice I am today? Because to maintain, I don't know, maybe it's software licenses, maybe it's that you've got to buy, 10 more of or something, or you've got to, rent a bigger office or whatever it might be. Just keep an eye on your overheads, I think.
Have you got a business coach?
Yeah, I've done coaching. I don't at the moment.
Yeah, maybe now's the time to go back to that and have a chat with. Doesn't have to be the same person.
Yeah. You know what? I think it's just exploratory. Some of these conversations about, and whether a good chat with, do you know Indy Johar, Johar of 00. So I had a chat with him because he runs a series of businesses, and I think his attitude with regard to freelance or not freelance was that he's not interested in freelance. He wants a core team, because it's what we do is retain knowledge, and he wants to retain that knowledge. One of the examples he said is that the buildings that that come out of Foster's or Rogers' offices today isn't designed by that team who's sitting there now. It's designed from decades of knowledge that comes out in that building that we might see, and retaining knowledge within the professions is another issue. Whether you know, there should be mandatory mentoring by people in the RIBA to startups, because the loss of information and experience with people reinventing the wheel when setting up the new practice is crazy.
Oh, it is. Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
so
I mean, this podcast, we do have a variety of listeners, sort of like from architectural students through to sort of architects just setting up in business, through to sort of hopefully architects of all kinds across the world, and anyone who's remotely interested in business as well. Yeah, so I mean, when I set up Pride Road, that was 8 years ago now, because I set up back as Rains Architecture back in, I think, 2009, 2010, just after the financial crash. And I sort of quickly, I had that vision of a hierarchical practice with, you know, directors and associates and, you know, someone at sort of office admin and technical staff and part ones and part twos. Because that's what I'd always seen. You know, that's the structure that I'd always been part of in my training. And after, and then when I went out and started winning work, it was across a variety of fields. But then I started to realize there were kind of barriers to entry in certain sectors that I wanted to get into. I wanted to get into housing association stuff, and at the time it was all frameworks, and I just spent a couple of years chasing my tail trying to get on frameworks. And I realized that the end goal that I wanted was to kind of share my skills and knowledge to improve the environments of, you know, homes, places where people live. And I thought the way to do that was housing associations and social housing and that sort of stuff. But actually what I realized was I could affect and help more people, just owner occupiers, homeowners, kind of one at a time. But you know, we were doing a lot. And actually, if I kind of focus that knowledge just on homeowners and making the kind of architecture more accessible across the board, we could have a bigger impact.
Because arguably, if you're doing work for a housing association, you're actually unlikely to be talking to the person who's living, who's going to be living in that home,
absolutely,
and to understand their bespoke requirements.
So we kind of niched down sort of relatively early on into just working with homeowners. And you know, I also at one kind of, I think 2 years in, I had a practice of, you know, there were 5 of us. And I remember 2 of my projects, my kind of more commercial projects, got pulled, and all of a sudden I had a cash flow problem.
This is precisely what I'm talking about.
And so I kind of changed the business model kind of almost overnight and went, right, okay, I'm going to go on a kind of subcontracting model, where, you know, I'm the architect, and then so I do the upfront design work, and then supported by subcontractors who, like sort of architectural technicians or other architects, to help support that process. And then on the kind of office admin side, I kind of thought, well, if I systemize that, so I'm not reinventing the wheel every time. So every time I kind of did a new procedure, I wrote it down and worked out how to, you know, well, actually sort of like, it was all about the same time. The second year into practice, I kind of read Michael Gerber's The E-Myth Revisited. And in it, he talks about systemizing businesses, and he does start to talk about franchising. And he said, he's like, if you think that when you're setting up a practice or a business, whatever you do, that at some point your goal is to franchise, and it's all about making the systems easy to operate. We're not talking about the end product, which is, the design, but we're talking about the kind of management systems behind it.
Sure.
And he said, if you don't franchise it, but if you systemize, then you've got an easier business to deal with.
Sure.
It's more scalable, it's more manageable. You can get the people in to help you.
Yeah.
You can grow, you can shrink, all that sort of stuff. So I'm quite literal. I went, oh, that's a good idea.
Nice. Yeah.
Systemized everything.
Yeah.
And then, sort of in 2015, 2016, I launched Pride Road. So yeah, I changed the name from Rains Architecture to Pride Road.
Why Pride Road?
Well, Pride Road. So I'm just tilting my screen.
Yeah, I can see the Pride Road up there. Yeah. Do Daniel in the Leon's Den? Do you get this?
Yeah.
That right?
I like it.
You like
Daniel
that?
Yeah, very
it's,
good.
It's meant to be.
It is. Yeah. So yeah. So she's a lioness. Pride. So we're a pride of lions and lionesses.
You're predominantly women.
We are predominantly women, but we welcome all. Even lovely men like yourself. So Pride, we work together. Kind of, we work as a team. We hunt. We're fierce.
Nice.
And then Road puts it in an urban setting. Pride is also a value that clients want in their homes. And then the logo is a street sign. So
nice.
It's nice and familiar.
Nice.
Yeah, thank
you.
Good.
No, it's good. It's all in the name. I know people ask me about square feet, and why square feet? and then people, oh yeah, square feet, because they just imagine literally the square feet and look down at my shoes and think and look at my orthopedic build-ups and wonder what's the matter with me. But it's oh right, yeah. Anyway, so there you go.
So why did you choose feet
as opposed to meters?
Yeah, as an imperial, yeah.
Because it has the pun value of people. It's more logoic. You can actually, it's more it's more graphicable. And to be honest as well, in commercial world, everyone's still talking square feet. People are buying houses on the square feet basis. I mean, we all need, architects need to know that magic number of 10.764. Everyone,
like pi, isn't it?
Exactly. I was going to say is, it should be the architect question. So how many decimal places can you do the transfer from meters to feet? At school we did pi, but nowadays we do 10.764 yada yada. So yeah, it's
that's about the only figure I know, I think.
You see, maths is important. But I think what you're doing is a really interesting sort of input in what that, because
always happy to have a chat if you want.
Yeah, well, we are having a chat. What are you talking about?
So the key to Pride Road is that we just do domestic resi.
Yeah,
we don't do anything else.
Yeah.
And that was a very conscious decision from the outset.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I think there is, but interesting. I think it's interesting to assess to what kind of level of complexity, what kind of model of projects a looser work, and and it's very much in today's buzzwords and parlance about this golden thread, with the Building Safety Act, etc. And that idea that on a project, one person has knowledge about everything that's going on in it. And if you're, and there's an element of repeatability and straightforwardness and whatever else within domestic work. If you're designing a concert hall or an operating theatre, there's another level of complexity there. And I was sitting watching with my 10-year-old the other week, a Netflix film on the design and the building of the James Webb Telescope, right? Which was this, so the telescope was sent off and it's looking into the distance, the start of time, and telling us about when what the world looked like, what the universe looked like at its inception. And this telescope was one of the most complicated things that mankind had built, and it took over a decade with thousands of people working on it. And I'm sure in that time there's lots of people that came and went, but there was one guy at the helm of it for the last period of it, so the last decade or so, who probably pulled it all together, all the various different bits. And maybe in the work that we do, we still need that one person, that golden thread, to pull it all together. Because as soon as you pass it along to someone else, just back to some of my sort of research, I was talking to this GP about what happens when they refer a patient to a consultant in hospital, and she said, the GP said that it's all in the notes. And but there's inevitably a bit of lack of translation, Chinese whispers, if you like, between one doctor and the next about the history, that's so important. So I think the complexity of what we do sometimes requires for that one brain to be in the center of it.
What is it something to do with well, it is the architect, isn't it? Having that longevity. I just wonder, we've got kids. We've both got kids kind of going into careers and stuff like that, and thinking about what they're going to do and where they're going to go. For us, we started out saying, we wanted to be architects. By the time we're 18 or whatever, we'd decided, and then you go and study for 7 years. Being an architect, and you come out and then you practice as an architect for the rest of your life. And some of our peers disappear off and go off in different directions. Pride Road is there to kind of encourage people to come back into it if they have gone and it is that longevity, but it's one. Is it a vocation? How many architects do you know that just carry on working well past retirement age?
Well, a guy I rented an office from, I think he's 84. I think he still works 5.5 days a week. I think he's gone down from 6 days. The lazy so and so. It's
like once you do it, it's in your blood. I can't.
So. But back to the point. I think there really should be a sort of mandatory mentoring that happens. And it's something that's been banging on the door at the RIBA about, because occasionally in my career I've yearned it myself, and you do it. There's a process to students, and that's kind of why it's established. But once you're in, let's call it mid-career, we all still need let's say a grey-haired person to ask advice on and direction, and whether that person is
one of the reasons why I do
what's that
one of the reasons why I do the podcast,
right,
is to reach out,
to share,
to share to those on their way, but also to reach out to my my heroes and go, right, how did you do it?
Right. And what have you learned?
There was a lovely one with Ben Derbyshire.
Yeah, go on.
And he was just I think just generally, I was surprised by how unconfident he had been along his career and still was. It was that vulnerability.
Well, we mean, our paths crossed at the RIBA on the council, and I think he was president at the time, wasn't he?
Yes,
yes, when we were both there briefly, overlapped for a year or so. And yeah, I mean, he was great.
And he'd constantly
was it humility?
out. Yeah, he'd really
was that...
out and ask, and he'd listen. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
real lessons there. Yeah, I mean, I think probably when you're running a big practice, as he did and does, that you need to listen. You need to because dogmatism only gets you so far. Particularly in the work that they do too. Who else have been your highlights in your people you've interviewed?
I mean, there's people at the other end of the other end of the journey. It's like the students coming into it, and often the most inspiring just forces of nature.
Right.
It's really
refreshing,
really refreshing to hear them come through. The stories of the kind of like seeing the early stages of the passion come through, and you're like, ones to watch. It's nearly time to crack on with our day jobs. It's a very dreary Monday morning for me.
It is. Yeah, it's not much better here in London. It's
early December.
It is. So what's keeping you busy at the moment? Is your workload healthy?
I think my conversion rates are sort of changing. So I'm having less new inquiries through, but the ones that do come through are much more committed
and more quality, right?
So it means I've got sort of like a lot of new work starting. We're seeing the kind of end of work that after the kind of the post-COVID glut, that's kind of like they're all on site and like coming to a completion. And then we've got the start of some projects, which is really quite exciting. So
nice.
So that's nice.
Yeah, we've just set. Oh, sorry. The only thing I was going to do was just set up in our office. So we don't. Sorry, I was just jumping back to what we were talking about before. So we've got these little sub businesses which keeps life interesting. So we've got our Square Feet Architect, Square Feet Home, do a bit of Square Feet Develops, which is a little bits and pieces of my own development as well, which is fun. And
fun. Very good.
And terrifying in equal measure. And then,
and a couple of years.
And then set up recently our own gallery, a little gallery in our office here. So we're in a converted old bookshop in near Marylebone Station, and we've got in the front part, which was the shop. We work in the basement, which is the studio, but we had as a meeting room, and we turned that into a gallery. So we've got exhibitions running there. We had the first one a couple of months ago, which was me and my little painting groups, because I picked up paintbrushes for the first time last year. Had a couple of pieces in the Royal Academy Summer Show and stuff, which was fun. And then through that met a bunch of Manchester artists, and they're showing in our studio here now, and we've got a rolling bit going next year. So it kind of, to use space that we've got to get creatives over the doorstep and rub shoulders with interesting people, I think is a bit of our New Year resolution for next year. So
that sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
Sounds like your journey's only just starting.
Well, I think it's a matter of just keeping things interesting, really. Mixing things up a bit, not just doing the same old. I mean, I think, I like new challenges. Okay.
Well, so it is 11th of December 2023, and so I think we are kind of mindsets coming towards kind of Christmas and the end of the year. And for me, it's all about kind of planning 2024 and what.
What's your what you got any New Year's resolutions? Or you're chewing those over?
Well, I've literally got my calendar for next year, just starting to plan it out. So I'm on a sort of Pride Road recruitment drive, so wanting to grow. So for me, it's about getting to where kind of other architects are hanging out around the country. So we've got sort of franchise opportunities all over the UK for sort of architects who kind of are looking to set up their practice, but under, may want a little bit more support. So under the Pride Road umbrella. So just trying to reach out. I'm just heading to some RIBA CPD roadshows just to do some networking there. Kind of we're doing some events with another franchise organization called B4B. So we're kind of doing that jointly. So already we've got a bit of a calendar in the day. Taking us up to summer, I think. And then, as a franchise, I look after sort of my franchisees. So, there's 5 of us around the country: Bournemouth, Surrey, Warwick, Northwest. And we have a rolling programme of CPDs, whether online and in person. Factoring those in. And one thing I am thinking about doing is opening them up to other architects as well. So
CPDs?
Yeah,
right.
So our CPDs are kind of focused at the domestic market, but also, sort of how does, the new Building Safety Act affect us, domestic clients?
Yeah, of course.
So changes in legislation, all that sort of stuff. So so watch this space.
Absolutely. Strength to strength.
Right. Okay. Well, lovely to talk to you. Thanks.
Good to chat.
Yes.
Good to see you. And have a great Monday. Happy Mondays.
Thank you for joining me, Lisa Rains, for Architecture in the Den. If you want to find out about franchising, check out our website, prideroadfranchise.co.uk. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe and leave a review. And do get in touch through your favourite platform if you'd like to be a guest.